there's Virat Kohli, there is Max Verstappen, there is Novak Djokovic, right? Now, if Virat starts to compare to Max in terms of, let's say, popularity or net worth, and you're the absolute greats ever in your sport, right? You still can't.
Like, how should the person navigate on this choice of leaving a job or taking a conscious break, not knowing if, he or she will have a offer in hand?
If you're planning to take a break, I think you should prepare at least on 3 broad aspects. And I'll break those 3 down further.
Changing jobs this often, how does this impact your career trajectory?
So on the financial aspects, I would say it takes a hit. As simple as that. A lot of us associate ourselves so much with the career that our entire identity is linked to our one title or one job role, right?
I have felt very judged switching often in my early days. What's your view on that?
I strongly feel that societal judgment is inevitable, especially in a country like India. One day, I woke up and there was this particular email, but I remember getting infuriated first thing in the morning, and the response to that email was resignation.
Hi Utkarsh, welcome to Power of Money. It's so good to have you here. As we were talking about, right, I think often when we talk about stories, we talk about people who stayed in a particular job for a long time, compounded their salaries and their investments. You took career breaks, you quit 3 times, and now you are starting something of your own. You sort of chose growth over a stable job. So would love to understand more on this, both from a financial lens and also from a career lens. Let's start with your career journey.
My journey has been a little bit interesting. Graduated from BITS in 2013 with 2 degrees. One was, of course, the quintessential engineering degree that you are supposed to get. And the other one was the economics degree.
Okay.
Now, hand to heart, I'm the worst engineer I know. And both in terms
I come as close second, probably.
both in terms of theory, application, everything. So thankfully, I had another degree to fall on. And I really enjoyed what I studied on the economics front, at least. And that's what my first job was. So my first job was with a company called Credit Suisse, which of course now is with UBS. I was part of a team where we were creating economic research. A great team. Everything was good. But after a while, I started getting that feeling that maybe career economist is not for me. And so what's next? And in India, especially if you don't know what's next, the answer is always MBA.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll appear for CAT and let's see what happens. And thankfully got through IIM Ahmedabad, went there for 2 years. I would say great 2 years spent there. But the question remained, which was, what next?
Yeah.
And I still did not have an answer. And as you would also agree, if you don't know the answer is consulting.
Yes.
So because I didn't want to do finance, I had already done it. So then consulting is the default answer. So worked at a company called Parthenon, which is an expert in education consulting across the globe, and worked there for a couple of years. So since my experience was in education, because of the consulting aspect of it, EdTech seemed to be a natural extension. And I also wanted to get my hands dirty as all consultants get an inkling to do after a while. So there's a company called Lido Learning, which was fitted with my thesis. My thesis at the time was, this is pre-COVID. My thesis at the time was that India market will move from recorded lectures to live lectures. And Byju's at the time was the market leader and it was completely recorded. Yeah. So Lido was doing something different, which was small personalized groups and live. And I thought that this is in alignment with what my thesis of the market is. I also wanted to get my hands dirty and I also wanted to try a product. So it seemed like a good confluence of everything. So joined Lido.
This is what year?
This is 2020, March.
2020.
March.
18 you started with consulting and 20 you...
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If you remember, EdTech in wave 1 of COVID was basically madness. Every day new startups were mushrooming up.
Absolutely. Everything was moving online.
Somebody was teaching you how to play guitar. Somebody was teaching you maybe math. Yeah. Somebody was teaching you, ironically, digital detox as well online. And what I started to see within the company was that we became quite reactive. So every week we were like, oh, maybe coding is the new in thing. So we'll launch coding. Maybe now we need to launch extracurriculars. So I started feeling a dissonance, at least in my mind, of what the original vision was. And then I remember one day I woke up and there was this particular email. I don't remember the contents of the email, but I remember getting infuriated first thing in the morning. And the response to that email was resignation. And that's how I had resigned. So it was spur of the moment. And then I took a 4-month career break. And then in January of 2021, after a 4-month break, is when I joined Apna.
Okay.
And Apna, as you might be aware, is a higher tech platform, a job tech platform, but for what we traditionally call as the blue and gray collar workforce. So I got a lot of, apart from marketing, I think, I did all the functions, worked across all the functions. So I got an experience, great diverse experience as well. But then this was, if you think it's my 4th job, I've tried different kinds of companies. I've tried different kinds of roles. I've tried different kinds of setups as well, like MNCs, startups and everything. So I realized the problem is with me. And I need to take a career break to figure out what's not working, because there's a constant itch that something is not right, that I do not want to, I'm not enjoying this basically. And I was living my life from weekend to weekend, and that's nowhere to live.
Do you think changing jobs this often, like how does this impact your career trajectory?
If you're doing the moves for learning, for growth, I don't think there is an issue. Having said that, in certain traditional setups, it might be flagged that, oh, this person is again and again moving. So there should be a story binding everything.
Okay.
Now that story could be around that you're moving towards a certain role and that requires transitions, and that's why you're doing those movements. Or it could be that you're just experimenting and you're young. And I think whenever I talk to people, I talk to a lot of people who ask me about career advice, ironically, because I have not figured out my own. But people do. And the first advice that I give is, especially if you're young, do as many experiments as possible, especially before your masters. Because masters can be a reset to everything. And before going to masters, I at least believe you should know what you want to do. At least for the foreseeable future. Nobody knows what to do for their life.
Yeah.
But at least for the foreseeable future, you should know it before your masters, so that you can use that investment well.
End up in consulting like us.
Exactly.
If you stay with the company, you also own equity in the company, not just monetary equity, but also the personal equity. You are building relationships. So that is there, which of course I feel over a long span of time helps in your career growth. And second, also about the whole societal judgment. I have felt very judged, switching often in my early days. Yeah. What's your view on that?
I strongly feel that societal judgment is inevitable, especially in a country like India, which is a sort of a collaborative, cooperative society compared to, let's say, an individualistic society, maybe like the US. So I think in a society like this, judgment is inevitable and it's par for the course. And if you can, you should ignore it. And even for IITians who go abroad, people face the same question, that why are you not building for the nation, right? So I think that is going to always be there. I can only answer how I sort of worked around it, maybe a little bit, and if that's helpful. But in my case, at least, I have never cared two hoots about societal opinion. That has been the case since childhood. So at least it was not a problem for me. But I do acknowledge it's a big problem, because I get a lot of, so I write extensively on LinkedIn about career breaks as well. And through that, I have a lot of conversations with people who are itching to take one. But their biggest obstacle is exactly what you asked, but what about the societal judgment?
Log kya kahenge?
Log kya kahenge? So I acknowledge it's a big problem. How I handled it was that, in my case, society was not a problem. I was more worried about parents. And interestingly, I did not inform my parents of my career break. So they came to know 1.5 years into the career break that I am on a career break. Yes.
Wow.
So that is how I don't advocate it, but that is how I handled it. Career break can be very lonely. Because nobody else is on the same path. You're sort of walking a path which is relatively unknown in India. So if the support crew is there, I think that helps quite a bit. So on the financial aspects, I would say it takes a hit. As simple as that. If you want to do things on your own terms, you will take a hit, some form of, and I'm not saying a long-term hit. You can come back to it, but there might be some short-term fluctuations for sure. If you're letting go of money, you must be selecting something and letting go of money.
Did you have to make that hard choice in your journey?
Throughout the journey, yes. So break is zero money, of course. But even with Apna, I had taken a pay cut.
Okay.
Even with Lido, I had not gone on a pay, or was there a marginal pay cut? It was, I think, similar at parity. And at Apna, there was a pay cut.
Okay.
So I have taken these decisions before. And if you're okay taking those decisions and you're getting something out of it in compensation, which is very important to you, I think that's
okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. Utkarsh, I can relate a lot to I think also chunk of the journeys have been similar.
Yeah.
But do you think, and I also come from my personal experience, because of the cushion of having, say, certain degrees, right, from the IIM or whatever, it made the decision easier. And why I ask this is, and because you might have also been talking to other people who you are consulting on their career journeys.
Yeah.
What should a person, like, how should the person navigate on this choice of leaving a job or taking a conscious break, not knowing if, he or she will have a offer in hand?
Yeah.
What's your view?
If you're planning to take a break, I think you should prepare at least on 3 broad aspects. And of course, if degree is there, it helps a lot. So no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But those 3 aspects in my mind are financial, mental, and emotional. I'll break those 3 down further. Financial in the sense that, for example, if you're taking a break, if you do decide to take a break for, let's say, 6 months. Now, you have to first decide the lifestyle you decide to lead during those 6 months. Because when paychecks are coming in, you have a certain kind of lifestyle. For example, if you're planning for 6 months, and let's say you decide that the monthly expense would be 1 lakh, let's assume. So 6 lakhs you need, right? So I would say 2x of that. So that I am saying 2x and 12. So basically set 12 lakhs aside for you.
Yeah.
And I'm saying 2x because if you're doing only 1x, then by month 4, you will be in stress because now the money is going to get over and I need to figure out. And I don't want anybody to have a stressful break because it was the best phase of my life. So I want everybody to have fun during their breaks. So in mental, I would say a lot of us associate ourselves so much with the career that our entire identity is linked to our one title or one job role, right? And it could be, and the realization might hit you later. When, for example, let's say you're on a break, you are going to a party and somebody asks, hey, what do you do? And you go into an existential crisis. I've seen that happen in front of me with people who are on breaks. So if you are this kind of a person, you need to figure out maybe an answer for yourself, or maybe just first of all realize how futile it is to associate with the job role. Like, who cares? Like, your entire being cannot be that you're a director somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So first of all, realize the futility of it and ideally try to get out of it. And it'll take time. And second thing is have an answer ready. So I was saying I am on a career break indefinite. And I do not care about your opinion if you are just mental, right? So I was not adding this part, but of course in my mind, I would say map out your fears and insecurities beforehand, at least the ones that you are broadly aware of. I'll give you an example. One insecurity I was sure of that will come as soon as I take a break is I'm lagging behind my peers, right? And I knew every time I would go to LinkedIn, I would see somebody getting promoted to a partner or an associate partner or things like that. So I had already created an answer for that. So my answer that I had created was that, okay, now there's Virat Kohli. There is Max Verstappen. There is Novak Djokovic, right? 3 absolute greats, all-time greats, 3 different sports. Now, if Virat starts to compare to Max in terms of, let's say, popularity or net worth, or if Max starts to compare to, let's say, Novak, all 3 sports are so different that you can't. And you're the absolute greats ever in your sport, right? You still can't.
Yeah.
I'm not even 1% of those personalities, but so it was just a reminder to myself that now we are playing different sports. Because I've decided to move away from the conventional corporate ladder. They might be my peers because of our educational backgrounds, but they're not my peers anymore. We are not playing the same sports. So I can't compare.
That's a good framework on, financial, mental, and the emotional sort of checklist. And I think you use the word trained yourself, right? To not associate yourself with a particular profession. I think that self-training is all that made the difference, right? On the other, like both the mental and the emotional part. So I think on that note, let's double click on your financial planning of the break, right? You spoke about, having certain runway, 2x. Walk us more through that. What was your financial planning like? And before going on the break, how were you investing to sort of plan?
So I'll start from the very top. Let's start from the first job itself. So thankfully, the savings mindset has been instilled from childhood. My parents are grade A savers. So partly out of necessity and partly out of the lifestyle. So the savings mindset was always there.
Yeah.
So from my first paycheck, I've always saved at least 60%.
Okay.
I also have an elder sister, so she was investing.
Okay.
So she introduced me. Of course, I knew the concept of mutual funds, but she helped me figure out what kind of mutual funds, like how to start building your portfolio. So she helped me with that. And that's how my journey started. And it was mutual funds is how I started. Mutual funds and some stocks, which I think I knew with absolutely zero conviction,
Story of every.
zero fundamental analysis. It's a good name, and I think you are doing well. So that
I think that story of
your HDFC, you can't go wrong. So I'll put my money in you. And despite all my mutual funds having the exact same allocation in you, I'll still put more money. So things like that. But yeah.
Okay, so primarily it's been into mutual funds.
Mutual funds and some stocks.
Okay, so your portfolio right now, or rather before the break, was like how was it allocated?
Yeah. So it's predominantly, I would say 70 odd percentage is in 70 to 72 might be in equities. And then 25 odd would be fixed income, and then balance would be gold, 2, 3, 4%, whatever is left.
Okay. And since equity is such a big part, so how is it in equity? Like across large cap, mid cap, what's your strategy?
So large cap is around 50%.
Okay.
Around 30% is mid cap and 20 is small cap.
Oh, okay. Okay. And these are like mostly active funds or passive funds?
Yeah. So large cap ones are passive.
Okay.
And small is active. And I think even mid is mostly active, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. And like you keep it simple, 2, 3 funds.
Yeah. I think I'm invested in total 6 to 7 funds.
Okay. And this strategy, right, of diversifying into large, mid, small, and then, 25% in debt, that helped you fuel your career break? Like you were withdrawing from your mutual funds? How were you financing your break?
Yeah, it was completely financed by mutual funds only.
Oh, okay.
So I had earmarked, I knew I was going to take a career break. So I had earmarked certain mutual funds only for this. These I'll eventually liquidate. And I had initially thought of getting an SWP. But I didn't take that route. I had some liquid cash at the time already in the bank. So I thought I'll use that and then just liquidate one of the mutual funds or 2 of the mutual funds.
Okay, so you liquidated maybe 1 or 2 of your funds completely and then fuel. Oh, okay. Got it.
So I did not do SWP.
Got it.
I don't know why, but I did not.
Okay. So on that note, how was your break like? Did you always plan for like a year and a half, or was it 6 months that extended into a year?
In my mind, it was indefinite. If I had to break it into 3 phases, and this is the consultant in me, so I'm sorry, this 3 hours, relax, reflect, and recalibrate. And a lot of people I feel, and that's how I'm voicing it out, forget the relax part of a break and directly jump to the reflect part. Especially if you're taking a break because you're burnt out or facing some issues or whatever, you should just not do anything. I will even remove the loose structure part for that. You should just let your mind and body be.
Yeah,
come to equilibrium, then only start the next phase, which is reflect. But relaxing, I'm very, very okay if people don't do anything and I did nothing. If I talk about the various activities that I did during the break, travel, of course. I love mountains. So a lot of trips to nearby mountains, and that's why I was in Delhi during the break because I wanted to be closer. A lot of trekking as well. Watching and playing a lot of sports. Getting reconnected to sports basically. Reading, writing, I journaled a lot. I've filled registers and registers of journals. And I did Vipassana, 10-day course. Very difficult for me.
The full detox.
I wouldn't call it a detox by any way. It's hardcore. And then I also learned a dance form. I was doing different things basically. I did a lot of socializing. I did a bunch of things.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this was, of course, I would say on the relaxed side of things. The reflect side of things was the journaling and writing part, which I mentioned. I journaled extensively. And it was the first time that I was going deep within. And how it all started, why I started journaling was because I started doing an exercise called career postmortem.
Okay.
Which sounds morbid, but it is not. It is basically about you list every career decision that you have ever made on a piece of paper. And you, in front of it, to the right of it, you can write what was the key decision criteria for that particular decision.
Hmm.
Right. So I'll give you an example. For example, why did I go to consulting? Because it was the in thing to do at campus. As simple as that. It was not that there was passion of mine or something, and it had some exit options. These were the two reasons, right? So if you do it for all your career moves, at least when I did it, I realized that none of it was authentically my decision. All of it was some form of conditioning or some form of maybe external validation. Oh, this is considered success. So that got me thinking, okay, what if I decide to do something? What will that thing be? And then I realized I don't know myself. Like, how would I decide if I don't even know what I want?
That's quite an existential question.
Exactly.
Who am I?
Who am I? So I still don't know, but at least then I started reading about it, researched quite a bit about it. There's a fantastic article by Tim Urban, the author of Wait But Why. I don't know if you've read some of his. Fascinating. You should highly recommend. So there's a blog or a website called Wait But Why, where he writes about all these existential questions. So one of his articles, very long article, is about how to pick your career.
Okay.
So basically you start with your fears. You figure out what your fears are. Again, there are maybe some questions around which will help you figure out what your fears are. And then once you figure out your fears, you come to your yearnings. What are your inherent yearnings? And why yearning octopus? Because all of us have, let's say, different arms, which are always pulling us from different angles. So one could be your moral yearnings, one could be your personal yearnings, one could be your psychological yearnings, one could be your social yearnings. And you have to feed them enough. Otherwise, one yearning will ape over after a while. If you ignore them enough, they'll take over after a while. So you have to figure out your yearnings, figure out which is your top most your yearnings, and that you ideally are not able to change, or it's very difficult to get away from it. So you need to sort of factor that in all your decisions in life. So I figured out 2 to 3 clear things about myself that I would need to be happy in my career. And then I also figured out my fears. So a fear of failure was very strong. Fear of uncertainty was very strong. And for a person with a high level of fear of uncertainty, career break is, it can be very dangerous. But thankfully I had prepared well. So after basically realizing these things, and also realizing that I would work better in, let's say, a very small team rather than working in a very big setup. I would not enjoy cross-functional roles. All of this came with a lot of, these were the outcomes, but a lot of journaling and a lot of research. I did at least, I think, 20, 30 different exercises across months to figure out what kind of a person I am and what will work.
Your journey will be very relatable to a lot of, people in their mid careers, because kahin na kahin, I think after doing, 8-10 years of corporate work, you feel ki, okay, freedom, agency, I think, mujhe khud ka karna hai types. Tell us the other side of, being, a founder, like starting up of something of your own. How does that impact? I'm pretty sure the hours are not, I think the hours are still the same. You work utna hi. Maybe even more, right? Yeah. But how does that work out, both in terms of, your, say, lifestyle, work life, and money wise also?
So founder life, especially if it's a very, very, very small company, which is the case with us, is chaotic. I think that's the one word I can come up with. And why chaotic? Because you have to do everything, including, let's say, if you're speaking to clients, if you're signing to clients, you're doing that because you're the face of the company. If in a very small team, everybody has to do everything. There's no saying, oh, that I am the founder and great. That title, good, looks good.
Yeah.
And as I jokingly say internally, founder means head intern. It's as simple as that. So Advisor, what we are doing basically is creating high quality thought leadership content across industries and across formats. We pretty soon intend to enter into the audio and video space as well. And the idea is to create, hopefully in the near future, documentaries as well on topics that matter for humanity. I never thought that I will do anything of my own.
Got it. Great, Utkarsh. I think some very practical tips and, like real life conversations on how any corporate person would feel. And I think a lot of audience will relate to this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all these learnings. I had such a lovely time.
Likewise.